Okay, good evening and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Iyun with Benzion. Today's daf is Nazir daf lam, and we're finishing the fourth parak over here. I don't have a place to give it on Wednesday afternoons, so I do it in the base medrash. Sorry if there's some background noise. I want to focus at the very end of today's daf. It's a little confusing, today's daf. Lam and Amad. On the bottom, the Gemara poses a bunch of queries on Lam and Amad Beis. The last question the Gemara asks, right? We learned basically that today surrounds around the halacha that under certain circumstances, the son could use the unspecified money that his father set aside for his karbanos nazir, and then he died for his own karbanos. Right? So the Gemara has various questions about this. One, now the Gemara has a question at the end. Let's say his father set aside the money for Nazir Satara, for the Chatas Ola and Shlamim, that at the end of his completion of his Naziris when he was Torah. And then his son becomes a Nazir, and his son becomes Tameh. Right? So normally he could use the money, the son could use the money for the Karbanos Satara, for the Chatas Ola and Shlamim, at the end of a period of Naziris where he didn't become Tameh. But now he's Tameh. So you have to bring a Chatas Ola, a pair of birds, and a Karban Asham. So obviously the Asham, right, you can't use the money for, but the Chatas and Ola could use the money for the Chatas and Ola from his father, which is unspecified, it's all a bunch of money, for his Chatas and Ola of Tuma, and vice versa. Also, let's say his father became Tummy and set aside the money for Korbanos Tuma, and then he died. Now his son wants to use the money for Korbanos Satara. Could that work? So the Gemara doesn't answer this question. The Gemara says Teku. Now, some Rishonim, Rabbeinu Tudrus and Rabbeinu Peretz, which are brought in the R scroll footnote number 27, have a very fundamental question over here. It's implied by the Gemara this is only because it's the son using the money of his father. However, the father himself, if he sets aside money for Nazir's Natara, right, for the Kawanos, unspecified money, the Kawanos at the end of his Naziris, and then unwittingly he becomes Tameh. So now we need Karbanos, Chatas Ola, for Nazir's Tuma, right? Could he use the money? So it's implied from the Gemara, it's only because the son can't use the money, but the father himself, of course, uses the money. So they ask the question, what do you mean if the father could use the money? We just learned on Daf Chav Ches, number 28a, we learned that if you set aside money for a chatas, you ate blood of an animal, and you're chayav a chatas, you did it by b'shogeg, and then you set aside money for the korban, and then you also ate chalev of the behema. You're not allowed to eat it. You also chayav, you did it b'shogeg, chayav a chatas. You can't use the money that you set aside for the dam. You can't use it for the chalev. You can't use one for the others. So he says kosher again over here, right? The chatas that you're using for Nazir Satara at the end of your Naziris is fundamentally different, they assume, than the chatas that you're bringing for Nazir Satuma. So if you can't use what you apportion for dam for chalev, certainly you can't use what you apportion for tara for tuma, or for tuma for tara. They're completely different chatos. And because of that, such a strong question, they have to amend the Gemara and bring a different girsa in the Gemara over here. I don't know what the question and why it's such a difficult question. Seemingly the Gemara already answered this question before. The Gemara says, "Let's not kapar. Why do you bring a Kerman Chatas at all by Nazir? What did you do wrong? Especially by Nazir Satara. You didn't do anything wrong. If you did your Tameh, so you violated your Naziris unwittingly, okay, maybe you bring a Chatas for that. But why do you bring a Kerman Chatas when you complete your Nazir Satara?" And he answers, Relezra Kapar answers, Al Shatzir Atzmam Nagay. And the reason you're bringing Kerman Chatas is because you cause yourself pain. And even if maybe it's a mitzvah to do in Naziris for 30 days, it's a good thing sometimes, you still partially sinned by hurting yourself drinking wine. And that's the same reason you bring a Karban Chatas when you become Tameh, right? In fact, the Gemara says, Asher Chata ala Nefesh, when it comes to bringing the Chatas for Tumah. And the Gemara asks, why is it saying it over there? If it's a problem with Sir Atzman Ayayin, it should even be said when he brings the Chatas for the Tara, when he completed the Tara. And the Gemara says, Lefisha Shana B'chet. He did two Averos over here. He became Tameh, and he also was Sir Atzman Ayayin. So you see that the Korban Chatas that you bring with Tuma is also the same reason you bring it with Tara is also with Tuma. It's just a more severe Chatas when you become Tameh because you did two Averos. But at least part of the reason you're bringing the Chatas is that Sir Atzman Ayayin. That doesn't go away. It's not that the Tuma is only because you became Tameh. No. Shana B'chet, you did two Averos over here. Right? And maybe, right, the Gemara is saying even a bigger Chiddush is that right, it's a longer Siyar Atzma Min Hayayin, because when you come Tameh after 15 days you're Naziris, now you have a 45-day Nazirus. So instead of a 30 days, you have 40. You're Mitzayir Atzma Yoser Min Hayayin. I think that's what the Gemara is saying. Shana B'chet, right? It's not just. I don't think the Gemara is saying Shana B'chet is that you did two averos over here. One, your Siyar Atzma Min Hayayin, and two is that you became Tameh and you violate your Nazirus. Shana B'chet, I'm giving a new explanation over here. What I believe the explanation is, Shana B'chet is that you made the Siyar Atzma Min Hayayin worse, right? Because if you didn't become Tameh, it would only be 30 days. You'll only be withholding wine for yourself for 30 days. Now that I become Tameh, right, I made it worse that I'm now 45 days, more than I wanted, and I'm being Mitzayir myself more than I wanted. Because presumably if you took Nazirus for 30 days, all you felt you could handle was 30 days. Now that you became Tameh, you have to do a 45 days be abstain from wine. That's much more difficult. So it's elongating the period of Nazir. So Shana B'chet doesn't necessarily mean that it's two sins, Siyar Atzma Min Hayayin and you became Tameh. It's that it's really one sin. It's just a double whammy. It's a double Siyar Atzma Min Hayayin, Siyar Atzma Min Hayayin, even more. And that can be a deeper explanation over here. So for sure, the chatas for Tumah and the chatas are exactly the same thing. So it's not a question why the father could use the money for korban chatas for Tara, for Tumah, and for Tumah for Tara, because they're for exactly the same thing, which is not by chelev and dam, which are obviously two different lavim in the Torah, two different parshios in the Torah. Hope you enjoyed today's share. See you in the next one.